Hi there. Welcome, everybody. Come on in, grab a seat. Welcome to the Virtuous Insider. We're just two, software product guys here talking about how Zoom changed their interface on us. And boy, isn't it terrible when software companies do that to you. So it happens to us too, is what I'm trying to say. It happens to everybody. But welcome, everybody, to an exciting edition of the Virtuous Insider. This is our product pulse session where we take a look at some new things in the product, either that were just added or are going to be added. And today we've got to look at something brand spanking new that I'm excited about. Before we jump in, just our usual quick housekeeping items, right? We are recording the session today. It is going to be available in the support center. That's where we have the recordings from all of the insider sessions, any of the ones that you missed, that you just want to gather around and watch with your friends and family around a roaring fire, like whatever it is, you can go there to the support page. You can check out those replays. We do have everyone muted so that we can try to get some good audio quality, at least as good as we can. But as always, we love your questions. Jason loves to hear from clients. He loves hearing feedback. That's what he lives for, right? Because that's a lot of what he does, is to ask people, hey, what do you think? What could we do? How is it working for you? So if you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. And we definitely like being active in the chat. But please, if you have a question, use that Q&A box. That way we won't lose track if there is an active chat going on. And we can make sure that we can get your question answered when we have some time to do that. And without further ado, I've already mentioned him, but my esteemed co-host is Jason VanLue. He's the director of product here at Virtuous. Jason, how are you doing, sir?
It is a great Thursday. I think it's Thursday, right?
That's a bad sign.
I am well. Yeah, probably. But how are you doing today, Scott?
I'm good. I know it's Thursday because it's the Insider, and that's
right.
every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
That's
our
professional
plug right there.
North Star.
Well, hey, today our agenda is pretty simple. We didn't want to cover too many things. There's one big thing we want to look at, and that is payments. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'll turn it over to Jason. He has some things he's going to take us through in terms of what that means. What does that mean when we say payments or payments is coming?
Awesome. Super excited to talk about this. This has been in the development cycle now for a handful of months, and lots of work has gone into this. So I am really excited to show all of you and talk about what I guess could be kind of a boring concept with payments, but we're going to try and jazz it up. Is that what the kids are saying these days?
With the jazz hands, yes.
So payments in Virtuous. First off, why are we building this? Why are we launching this? And I think that there are a couple of reasons. First, if you're familiar with payment platforms, Stripe, WePay, things like that, Authorize.net, most of these payment platforms aren't built for nonprofits, right? Nonprofits typically have to sort of jerry-rig systems to work there, and even as simple as things of like how they name things, they're all like for-profit nomenclature. They're not really structured for nonprofits. So that's reason number one. We really wanted to build a payments platform that at really the foundation, it was built for generosity. And then number two, we're all about responsive fundraising. And so all of our products within our ecosystem, that is really our DNA. And so having a payment platform that isn't just sort of bolted on to Virtuous is kind of this like ugly piece that is just necessary, but having something that really fits within the Virtuous ecosystem and offers you the ability to be more responsive with your payment processing is super important to us. And as we talk about some of the features, and even as we look ahead to what we want to do with this platform, super excited with all the things that we're going to be able to do to help you be more responsive in your fundraising. So getting started is super easy. You're going to see a screen that kind of looks like this, competitive rates, competitive functionality. It's an easy underwriting process, nothing super crazy there. But then once you're established on Virtuous Payments, This is probably going to be one of the biggest differences that you're going to see. So if you're familiar with Stripe, authorized.net, if you use that right now, you're not going to see this inside of Virtuous. We are inside of Virtuous right now. This happens to be our QA environment, but we are inside of Virtuous. And so what we've done is we have built all of this functionality where you can now see metrics, dig deeper into insights and analytics specifically related to the transactions that are coming in. Now, in this particular example, we're not doing so hot. We only have 3 transactions here, but that's okay because it's only about one, right? It's only about that one donor. But we are bringing in all of this information, and you can look at different time frames, and you can see things like total revenue. You can see things like how many transactions, average gift size, right? This is not something that you're necessarily going to get out of the box with other platforms. And we're going to be adding to these metrics moving forward. We're going to be connecting them with other pieces of Virtuous, especially as you talk about responsive analytics, things that are going to help you be more responsive as an organization. So this is really cool, able to kind of dig deep into your transactional metrics here on this giving dashboard. You'll also be able to see all of your transactions. It's a table of data, but we are pulling all of those now inside of Virtuous, and so you can see relevant information about your transactions that are coming over. You can access your donor portal. Once this gets super long, hopefully for all of your orgs, you have a ton of transactions, and so you'll need the ability to filter all of that data. But then one cool thing, it's a small thing, but it's a pretty cool thing. You can refund directly from here. So you don't have to go to Stripe or just some other third-party platform to process all of your refunds. If you have to refund somebody, you can do that right here. Just click the little refund button. You can add a reason, and it's all done through there. You can also view these transactions right here in this interface. So once again, you don't have to go off to another interface, to another platform to actually view that information. You can see all of this here. And this is especially relevant, Scott, you and I were talking about this earlier, of if you're wanting to send an email or one of your folks in your organization needs to check on some specific details, we're pulling in things like last 4 of the card. We've got status indicators here. We've got other meta information that's going to come over, just so it's super easy and efficient for you to sort of work your way through these transactions. We can have all of that show up here.
Yeah, and Jason, to add on to that too, and we know, right? We started out with Virtuous Giving with some other processors. We had WePay and Stripe available, and to the point what we talked about at the beginning, listening to what we're hearing from clients. We know there were situations where you have a donor on the phone and they're asking a question about their gift, and they want to confirm if they use the right credit card. And that data wasn't visible in Virtuous at all, right? You'd have to go to Stripe or find it in WePay or elsewhere. And now you can actually bring up the transaction. You can say, yeah, it looks like you paid with a card and it ends in this case, 1111. Okay, great. That's my Visa. I used the right card. And that sounds like a really simple thing. And it is, right? It's something that can happen every day. And it's something that now we're able to bring into the tool to make it a little bit easier to handle those questions.
Yep, absolutely. So transactions, we can also see all of our recurring gifts. I think I only have one in this demo environment, but you can imagine that we have, a ton here. And once again, you're able to pull up a modal to be able to see information about those recurring transactions. And then once again, you're inside of Virtuous. So if you need to manage, information about that particular recurring gift, you can just go over to the gift section inside of Virtuous, manage it there. You don't have to do this cross-platform kind of things. We also have settings built in. And so you can adjust things like your donor portal settings, colors, and sort of configuration, things like that. We also have the ability for you to manage disputes. Once again, hopefully that's not something you're having to do on a regular basis, but that also brings in, I think, one of the big value adds of Virtuous Payments, in addition to the amazing user interface that you see before you, is that we are handling all support, right? So the fine folks on Scott's team, the fine folks on Meg's team, who you are used to talking with day in, day out, are the same folks that are going to be handling support for all of your transactional information. So you don't have to get on the phone or email Stripe or wait for that, we're going to be handling support. And so that's pretty cool because, that's a huge part of who we are, right? We want to be your partner, not just another vendor. And so bringing this into the Virtuous world really allows us to provide that next level of service when it comes to your payment processing.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than when there is a support question or an issue, and someone on our team has to say, you know what, you think you're going to need to talk to Stripe. And I have to say, just in all clarity here, as frustrating as that is to hear sometimes as a client, it's equally as frustrating for us as an organization and for anybody in support to not be able to say, I can handle that for you myself. And so to be able to say, hey, look, all of this is going to come underneath of Virtuous, under our auspices. If you have disputes, you're going to handle them through us. If you have questions about rates, if you have questions about this, all of that comes through Virtuous. You have one person to contact. Really, it's part of us trying to provide a better experience for you guys. And we like to be able to do that for you too.
Exactly right. One of the other cool things that I want to show has to do with forms, because you're probably asking, okay, well, how do I actually set all this up when it comes to my giving forms? And so I'm going to switch over to another demo account here. If you guys are fans of Zoolander, and so I'm going to go over to forms here. And so actually, before I do this, I'll show you. So this is a sample donation form. This is on Raise Donors, which also supports Virtuous payments, but it's the exact same on the Virtuous side. Your forms are going to be the exact same. It's going to be the same builder, which I'll show you in a minute. It's going to be the same interface on the front end for all of your donors. It's going to look and feel the exact same. But one of the nuances that I think is super valuable is that ACH transactions are now built right in. So that's supported natively by Virtuous Payments. You don't have to use something like Plaid or something else to be able to process ACH transactions. You can pay by credit card. You can also donate with your bank account and just enter that information here.
And we should add, and you're showing it, right? But we want to make sure we're being super clear because, right, we've had the ability to offer ACH, but like Jason said, it's always been through Plaid. Those of you guys who've been using it know that means that your donor can select bank account. They have to log into their online banking account, and then they can process it. And of course, there are situations where their bank may not be supported by Plaid. And now you have a donor who wants to give to you, and they can't for what seems like a really silly reason. And so we've had a lot of requests for this. This has not been something that only one or two people have asked about. And so we have added in support so that now you can have those bank account payments processed with just the bank account number and the routing number.
Yep. Super cool. So on the front end, that stays the same other than being able to process transactions directly here, which is awesome. But then, as I mentioned, building the forms are exactly the same. But the other kind of cool piece of this too is when you think about, all right, so let's say I'm on Stripe right now. All right, so I've switched organizations, and I'll actually be able to kind of show you this. So I'm on Stripe now, and this should show up for me now here, right? And I'm interested in using Virtuous Payments, but to think about migrating everything over from Stripe sounds pretty daunting. Like, what do I do in those situations? Well, we can actually run different payment processors in parallel. So that means that if you want to make the switch over to Virtuous Payments, which we would highly recommend, you don't have to do it all at once. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. You can continue to run Stripe and run Virtuous Payments at the same time. Transition slowly, or maybe run Virtuous Payments for a particular campaign, whatever makes sense for your organization. But we have built in the functionality here to be able to switch between whatever payment processors you're using. And once you start building out forms, where did my window go here? Oops, wrong button. So if I come in here and let's just open this one up. Now, when I'm building out a form, I can add all of the information that I need to, but then down here at the bottom, you see this additional input where I can select the payment processor that I want to use. That's all you got to do. And then I just continue with the build process, and everything that's available in our form builder currently is still going to be available to you. So to me, that's a pretty cool feature because it does give some flexibility. And it's super easy to be able to utilize different platforms, again, depending on how it makes sense for your organization.
Yeah, and to be clear too, that is something you're only going to see if you do have multiple processors. So if you are only using Stripe right now, if you're only using WePay right now, if you're going to be one of the folks who's going to jump onto Virtuous and use payments, and that's the only one you have. Obviously, you won't have a choice of processor. There's only one to pick from. But as soon as you have multiple, you'll be able to toggle, and you can toggle between them when you're viewing transaction data, when you're viewing the recurring data, and you can toggle between them for a giving form. That also means a specific giving form is always going to have a specific processor tied to it, right? And to Jason's point, maybe, hey, we've been using Stripe for a long time. I'd like to try out payments. I don't want to replace my donate form on my website and the bulk of what I do, but I'm going to try using it for one campaign, and then we're going to ease into that transition. Trying to make it a little bit easier to do that.
So that's a very brief overview of payments. There's a lot more that goes into that. Certainly, if you're interested in it, we would love to talk to you more about the intricacies of it and about what it might look like to help you transition over to it, or answer any specific questions. But before we hit maybe some other bonus content, Scott, we probably have questions. I see a lot of red notifications there. So what are some of the questions that have popped up? Maybe we can hit those now.
It is very, very popular. We've got lots and lots and lots of questions. And I saw you stopped your screen share. So if you would like, I can make sure we are looking at our questions slide, right, while we talk through all those questions, because we want to be professional here, right? Why not? Here we go. So let's see. And it looks like we've got some questions in Q&A. We've got some in the chat here. I'm going to go out of order because I got the chat on top. If I'm using the Virtuous payment processor, will the credit cards process into my gift bundle each day the same way as my online giving does now from WePay? And Jason, I'll take that one because I talk about it every day in training. But the answer is yes. Right? It's going to get bundled the same way if you're using Stripe, if you're using WePay. This is still the processor that's working with Virtuous Giving. So to Jason's point about building your giving form, a lot of those fundamentals won't change, right? You're still using the same form builder tool. You have some new options in terms of bank account giving and other things. And those gifts will still process. They'll get batched each night at midnight, and they'll be bundled together so that you can come in and complete that import every morning. That part's going to stay the same as it is. Let's see. So we had a question about if we would support authorized.net in the multiple processors. So not in Virtuous, specifically with Virtuous Giving, but of course, if you are using Raise Donors does support authorized.net. That is one of their payment processors that you can use. Okay. And now jumping over to some of the Q&A here, Jason, and I'm stealing them all, so I'll share some with you. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
We had a question here about swiping. So can I swipe it on a mobile device if we have to charge for a ticket or a raffle ticket or anything at events? And if so, is there a cost for swiping devices? And if not, is there something we can use to facilitate that sort of charging at an event and still link to Virtuous payments?
So out of the gate, no, there is not any hardware associated with this. However, I'm glad you asked that question because that is specifically one of the items on our payment specific roadmap. So in the future, that is one of the many cool things about having this as a product now. We do want to roll out lots of additional features, including on-site hardware. So swiping devices, things that can be utilized via your mobile device, things like that to help make that transaction process a lot smoother. So not at this very moment, but that is definitely something that is on our radar moving forward.
Excellent. So we had a question about basically the fact this is going to replace Stripe. And it sounds like someone's really happy about that, but they're in onboarding right now. And this is the first time they're hearing about payments. So I just wanted to address that kind of in a more broad sense. And Jason, you can add to this too, but just in terms of what this looks like for the rollout of payments. So to be clear, this is brand new. I know that Jason, when did the email go out that you sent? I can't remember what day that was. Neither Jason and I can remember what day it is. So
Yeah, I don't know exactly. So that was last or this well, it was the end of September, whenever that was, whatever day that was,
was
September 30.
it was a handful of days ago,
And
is
yes,
what we'll say. And
it was
that
a
was
smattering
really
of
the
days.
first time that we really started talking about payment. This is that new. So this is a very new feature, and we're still in the early stages of rolling this out and looking for clients who are interested in either making that switch, say from Stripe to payments. And like Jason said, even just starting to use it for a single campaign, something like that, before you jump in whole hog. So if this is something that you haven't heard about before, right, that's really why this is that new of a feature.
Yep, you can smell the new car smell on it.
And there's a question about fees, basically fee structure and international surcharge, if that's on top of the Visa or the Amex charges. And then as a bonus to this, basically, hey, does this process in US dollars, meaning there's an exchange rate conversion happening? I don't know how deep you want to dive into some of the fee questions.
Yeah, I'm certainly not the best person to cover rates, and so I'm going to probably defer to our account managers on that one. I do know that we are super competitive. We definitely took a lot of time to evaluate rates from Stripe and others, wanting to make sure that we were very competitive for that. So I hate to not be super specific, but I don't want to get in trouble either. So I'm gonna make sure that we get you in touch with the people who have all that information.
Yeah, and that's really the case. Anything that you have a question about with this specific for your organization or any of these sort of fine print details, reach out to your account executive. They can help you out with that. So will transactions show project details? And if so, is there any chance to use the filter option for transactions or recurring gifts, to use the filter to find all transactions or recurring gifts for a specific project? I'll say that it does show, when we were looking at that transaction detail, it will show the project in that little popover, or projects, because remember, a gift can be split to multiple projects. And Jason, this points to something else you and I were talking about earlier in terms of not just the current state of payments, but what this allows us to do going forward in terms of new feature development and adding some things like that. Did you want to add on to that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is, again, like for somebody like me who lives and breathes by a product roadmap, right? So looking ahead and seeing what opportunities we have in the future. This is one of the reasons why it's super exciting, because of all of the opportunities that we have moving forward. And obviously, one of the obvious limitations of something like Stripe, and we actually love Stripe. Stripe is an awesome platform, but it's not built inside of Virtuous. And so we are limited literally by what we can integrate in terms of their API and what type of data they send to us. It's not like we can go into Stripe and say, hey, we have all of these responsive features over in Virtuous. Can you guys just magically update your API so that all of that is, playing nice together? That's just not going to happen. So now that payments is in Virtuous, that opens up every other feature within Virtuous. So if you think about all of the opportunities that could be in place moving forward, from everything as small as like linking individuals that come in with a transaction to the actual contact record, something as simple as that, so that it's easy for you to go back and forth between that information, to marketing automation. So bringing in information from transactions, even potentially transaction history, as we start to collect a lot of data, being able to serve that up to you to help on things like the responsive scorecard, which is on our roadmap to build, but also help you build out better workflows, more intelligent workflows. segment your donors better. There really is. I mean, I hate to use the cliche that like the sky is the limit, but if you think of all of the responsive functionality that we currently have in the Virtuous platform, that is open to us now with payments because it is built directly into Virtuous.
Yes. See, Jason said it much better than I can. That's why I let him do it. So we had a question about with recurring gifts, you can cancel the gift or change the date a gift is processed. I'll say that is a two-parter there. So yes, I can cancel a recurring gift, same way I can today, but I can do that right there in giving. Change the date a gift is processed is something that is slated to come. It's something that we've been working on to roll out. And so that's something that you can look for in a future update here for giving, but it's not something that would be available with payments, say today, right? If you were to get started right away. Let's see, man, I told Jason we could still do this in 30 minutes and now you guys are making me wrong. There's so many questions.
More questions that we've had ever, I think.
Awesome. I love it. It's great, but I just feel bad. I should have listened. So I had a question about if we're handling for support for payment processing, will support time frame response change from 24 hours? At this point, I don't anticipate that support changing in terms of that response time. I know our response time is typically a lot shorter than 24 hours. But one of the things we have done is we've been looking at adding some additional support resources and really specifically focusing on support for payments, because this is sort of a different animal than some of the support we might be doing on some of the CRM questions. So all that to say, there aren't any immediate changes coming. Some of the support processes in terms of those SLAs. But we are trying to make sure that we are staffed and ready to handle, because we anticipate, right? Like we said, if we're taking on support, well, that means we've got to be ready to take on that support and have folks who are ready to help you with it. And there was another question about fees here. Stripe charges an additional 50 cents for transactions associated with a recurring subscription, but payments will not. Is that correct? I can tell you right off the bat, that is correct, because with payments, everything's being handled in Virtuous in terms of the schedule. So there isn't a Stripe who's coming in and saying, well, hold on, if you're using part of our feature set, there's an additional fee we didn't tell you about. That's one of the things that we like about being able to have all this kind of in-house, for lack of a better term.
And not that, you know, Stripe is doing that just to stick it to nonprofits, because it's not just a nonprofit thing, right? But I'll use that as another way to say it's an example of how systems aren't necessarily built for, you know, responsive fundraising in general, and certainly built for nonprofit organizations. And so that's yet another reason why we wanted to build this product.
I wasn't trying to be mean to
type out
Stripe.
some answers here too.
Jason's going to tell him I was being mean to them.
That's right.
And so someone had asked if they have a Stripe and a WePay account, will those transfer in such a way we can essentially see all of that reporting from within Virtuous? And so like Jason was showing, you can toggle between those three to see those transactions, but we should be clear that the dashboard that has that sort of roll-up data, that's only going to show payments, right? Anything that's processed through Virtuous. But you'll still be able to see all the transactions from either of the other processors. And of course, all of that's going to flow in through your imports into Virtuous CRM. So any of your gift queries can pick up any of those gifts, regardless of the processor. Let's see. Is it possible for existing recurring donors, whose information's in Stripe, to convert over to Virtuous payments automatically without the donor having to do anything, or where they need to stay running in separate processors if we don't have them move their info over? Jason, I know you love to talk about credit card token migrations. That's like what you think about day in, day out. Did you want to add anything on this?
Sorry, I was typing an answer. I know it has to do with token migrations, but what was the specific question again?
Basically, if I want to switch from Stripe to payments, I don't have to have my donors change their recurring gifts.
No. We can do a token migration. We already have even a couple of those in flight right now. So we have processes in place, and thankfully Stripe's process for token migration is pretty straightforward. So if you want to migrate from Stripe to payments, that's not a big deal at all.
Excellent. So, hey, the existing forms we have set up through WePay. We need to set up new forms or swap out the embeds, since the embed contains the payment processor info. Very well done. I love a good informed question, maybe because I'm a training guy. But that you won't have to create new forms, but you would have to update the embed code on your site, because you are correct. The embed code does specify the processor. So you can use the form, but you're going to have to update the embed that's on your site. And Jason, I see you're answering some folks privately. Man, we're doing this as much as we can here.
Trying. I can answer. Cynthia's here at the top. She just asks the ability to bypass Plaid. Is that only available through Virtuous Giving? We currently use Raised Donors and Stripe. And so payments is available on Raised Donors. So if you switch from Stripe to payments in Raised Donors, then you could bypass Plaid. If you aren't on payments, you would still have to utilize Plaid to process ACH transactions.
Yes. And for this other one here, I'm going to add something here into the chat. So we do have in our support section some support articles that talk a little bit about the process of getting started with payments and what that looks like. And so I saw we had a question here that was about when money gets deposited into the bank. And so we do have an article that goes over what those payout times look like. So I'm just going to drop a link here into the chat. That'll show you a handful of articles there that specifically talk about payments, and one of those talks about that in terms of the payout times. I see a question, and thank you folks who are sticking with us. I know we're going a little over our time. We'll answer as many questions as we can. We had a question about the last 4 digits of the card. Can those be merged into receipts? So not currently. And that kind of goes back to something that Jason was talking about earlier, which is being able to have this data in-house, for lack of a better term, opens up some possibilities for things like that going forward. But at least in the current state, those last 4 digits are visible in payments on screen, but they're not something that I can use as a merge field in a receipt. Let's see. So it looks like here we had a question about migrating payments and cleaning up projects. Sounds like there was a migration issue. I think that that's something that's possible to do. It's certainly something that I would talk to your account manager about in terms of what that would look like. I don't want to say anything specific about, what level of detail or work it would be, but it sounds doable. I think that's something I would talk to your account manager about. This is great. We got a question about where the recorded version of this webinar will be again. It is in the support page. When you go to the support page shoot, I'm showing my browser here because I meant to show you something. When you go to our support page, you can go in here and you can go to webinars and videos. And there you'll see all the recorded webinars. So you can see any of the Virtuous Insider recordings. We haven't usually done weekly webinars, so we're going to have to restructure this a little bit, make it a little bit easier to find, but all of that is in there, so you can check it out at your leisure. Totally fine. Let's see if we can get in a couple more questions. Oh, geez, stop doing that, would you, PowerPoint? Can we internally change a recurring gift amount at donor's request? So that is something that our team is working on. It's not something that exists currently as part of payments. But again, that's something that's been a pretty common request from clients. And so that is something that our team is working on making possible. We know you want to be able to upgrade your donors, have an upgrade campaign. It's hard to do if they can't actually do that. And then token migration, is token migration available for Plaid? And you know what, that's a question that I don't know specifically the answer to what that would look like. I know because we're handling ACH differently, I don't know that those tokens can be migrated over to payments. That would definitely be something I would hit up your account manager about, and they can find out for sure. That's an excellent question.
It is. I'll find that out today because I actually don't know either.
Yeah.
But Bree, if you want to follow up with Jessica, Ashley, or Courtney, whichever one works with you, and then I'll make sure to get them an answer on that.
Yeah, and then there was a question about getting API data from payments. Well, and I'll say that anything that's processed through payments, right? Once those are imported into Virtuous as gifts, well, that's available through the API the same way that gift data is available today. I don't think you'd be able to intercept the transaction data from payments specifically to bring that in. But certainly once that's in Virtuous as a gift, that's available through the API just like it is today. Yep. Jason, I think we answered everything. I'm sure we missed some things in the chat. I'm sorry if we did. If we missed your question, I'll personally apologize on Jason's behalf. It was his fault. But this is great. I love getting lots of questions like this. I'm glad that people are excited about this. This is pretty awesome. And so we're a little bit over our time. This is when I would typically tell you to join us next week because we do this every week. And I'd like to share some words from someone smarter than me. And I thought this was kind of fitting for today because we are talking about what feels like a seismic cultural shift, at least for us here in Virtuous, kind of bringing this stuff in-house and making this something that we can offer to our clients that I think will serve them a little bit better than some of the processes we had in the past. Jason, is there any final words of wisdom that you want to share with everyone?
Oh my goodness. I never have anything good when I get put on the spot like this. So although I have a dad joke, should I end with a dad joke?
Oh, a dad joke would be great.
So how do lazy people exercise?
I don't know. How do lazy people exercise, Jason?
They do diddly squats. So there you go. That's the word of wisdom for the day.
That is the best way to end this webinar. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for sticking around. And we will talk to you again. Man, you're getting lots of love for that. So you're going to have to do that. We'll have the Jason VanLue dad joke of the week. We'll just do that every week.
I have way too many of those.